Welcome to Arch Audio's podcast. I'm Mark Hutchinson, Arch Audio studio owner, and I'd like to welcome you where we talk about everything to do with music, whether you're a producer, writer, artist, no matter what. If it's regarding music, we talk about it. And today we have an artist, producer, and writer, Jez Dior. So it's good to have you, Jez.
Always good to be here.
Jez has had some pretty significant success as of recent, which I want to start by talking about. I'm going to bring this guy out and show it to you all. For those of you who aren't watching that are listening, Jez co-wrote a song that ended up #1 on the Billboard's World Chart, which, #1 globally.
Yeah, #1 globally. She is a beauty, isn't she?
Yeah, she sure is.
She sure is.
So to say that you've had some recent success is kind of an understatement.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it's my first time. Basically, it's my first plaque first and foremost.
That's crazy.
But it's also my first time having success that's not Jez Dior, the solo artist. You know, it's success outside of that, and something that I'm super proud of. I just like to look at it; it's cool. But something that I'm super proud of, and kind of just came out of nowhere. I got invited to a trip in Korea and stayed out there for a little over a month, and it turned into 2 hit singles. And I really couldn't have asked for more. I didn't see it coming. I didn't know I was going there 2 weeks before I went. I ended up going, and a year later, #1 album in the entire world. Like, it's crazy.
That's what happens when you take chances, my friend.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I take all the chances.
Well, that's fantastic. I know you've had, a pretty interesting career thus far. As young as you are, you've been signed to a major label.
Yeah.
You're now signed to an independent label.
Yeah.
But you've had the most success releasing songs on your own.
Yeah.
So you've done it all 3 ways. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today because, every artist out there wants to know, how do I release music and, have a hit?
Yeah.
And, it's not about selling the CDs anymore. It's about streams. So that changed the whole music industry, as we all know. But I'd like you to talk about, the difference between all 3 of those. But I don't know if you want to mention the label that you were with, the major label that you were with by name.
I'll mention them.
Okay. I know it wasn't particularly a good experience. And that's the misnomer about labels.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, if I can just get signed.
Yeah.
But in your experience and the experience of others that we know, it wasn't the one-all be-all.
Yeah, I mean, I was signed to Epic for years, and it just wasn't the greatest experience, but, there was a number of things that factored into that. I took a very, very long time to sign with a major label on purpose because I wanted it to be the right situation and the right situation to work for me. I was in Columbia, Atlantic, RCA, you name it. I had Def Jam. I had meetings at every single major label for years. And when I met with the specific person at Epic, he made me feel like, okay, this is finally the right time, the right team. Everything about everyone within the building seemed perfect for me. And the president had just left, a new president had come in, and I was the first signing under her for the label. And so I felt like her baby. And at the time it was like, me and my manager both felt great about it. The thing about major labels is that it's a constant revolving door of employees. So the A&R that signed me, who believed in me most, who championed me to, get me signed there, was gone within the first 6 months of me signing there. So I was like, man, my person in the building doesn't work here anymore. And so then you get assigned somebody else who might not believe in you as much as the person prior. And then your product manager, who also believed in you the most ends up leaving.
Wow.
And then, your marketing person that you loved is gone. And it's just like, okay, well, now I'm stuck with a team who doesn't know me to the core like these people did. They saw my vision, understood it, and knew what I wanted to do. And then now every single one of them is gone. And so, my new A&R isn't as powerful as my old one. And so we're having to try to go direct to the president to get songs out, to get the album out, which thank God I ended up getting an album out. Like I wasn't sure at one point if I was going to be able to get the album out. But we would have to go direct to Sylvia Rohn to like get any answers. And she's a hard person to reach. At the time she was, at least. I don't know what she's doing now. I haven't checked up on her. But she was a very hard person to get in touch with. And like I'd come into the building for a meeting, it'd be scheduled for say 2:30, right? And LA traffic, it's not fun driving down to Culver City in the middle of the day. It takes a long time. So we get there after sitting in traffic for forever. The meeting would be scheduled for say 2:30, and then like DJ Khaled would walk in the building, or Travis Scott, or Future, or all these other people that are signed to Epic Records, and it would be like, oh, Jez, hold on, we're dealing with something. Travis is mad about something, Future's upset about something. So then I'd be sitting there for hours, just shooting the shit with the other people who work there. But it's like, I just felt like I was stuck in the middle of this big ocean, like definitely small fish in that pond. When these guys are putting out #1 records. I have one now, haha. But like these guys have multiple multi-platinum hits, so like I was brand new to them at the time. And so I got caught in that. And it was just this long battle to get my album out, to get any single out, to get budgets for the music videos, which in my mind, once I got them, they were way too much. And so like, we were spending $60,000 on a music video that like before, when I was independent, I made better ones for $5.
Right.
And so it just was like a whole mess, and money was being spent in places I didn't want it to be spent. And obviously it's all recoupable.
Yeah, I wanted to stop you right there and say, well, that's the label money. What does that have to do with you? So explain that.
So yeah, it's all a big loan.
That's right.
It's all a big recoupable loan when you're on a major label, or any label for that matter, for the most part. It's all a loan, and it all has to be paid back before you end up making a dime. And so what I made, or what I haven't made from my album on Epic, is I'll never make money from that album because of how much was spent on it. And what's funny is there was no recording budget, because me and Chris did the whole album in his room at the time, So like we did the whole album, but the marketing money that was spent on like parties at the Microsoft Lounge and stuff like that, and like the catering for the sushi and like all the extra things that we spent money on, besides the radio tour, that was the only thing that I think was great. But there was just so much money spent on needless things that I'll never recoup on that album. I put that out years ago, so it's not like streaming like crazy now. Like it's done great numbers, and it was a success for me. But the amount of money spent that I owe back, I'll never see a dime from that album.
Yeah, and I think our mutual friend Chris Wallace, he was signed with Epic, wasn't he?
He was,
and he had a similar experience.
Yeah, exactly. A little bit before me, but he was signed to Epic too, and had a similar experience, much like a lot of my friends who had been signed to not just to bash Epic or anything like that, because at one point they did believe in me and I believed in them. But I have many friends signed to majors, or that have been signed to majors, and it kind of all, unless you're like one of the top dogs, everyone kind of has the same experience. It's not a story that's like not been told a million times,
So you've had the most success though without a label.
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, so, and you know what, this is different times. So when I first put out my first single ever was, I think, 2013, and that's when I think finding music organically, not by curated playlists by some gatekeepers at big DSP companies, decide. When people organically found music on blogs or on different websites or write-ups on Twitter or whatever it is at the time, was like the best period for me, because I came out as a young kid doing something that nobody was really doing. And so my first song that I ever released was called Candles, which is also funny because Chris Wallace has a song called Candles.
It is funny.
But we had sampled this indie band called Daughter, and I rapped over it, and nobody had really ever done anything like with an indie sample and then somebody rapping. And so at the time, there was this chart on the internet, which I'm not sure if it exists anymore or not, but it's not as relevant as it was if it does, called Hype Machine. And basically, the way that you would chart on Hype Machine was based on, you would first have to get posted by a certain number of blogs to get on the chart. And then once you got on the chart, people would vote for your song. And that was how A&Rs would discover artists back in the day, by the Hype Machine charts. And so the first song that I put out got so much love by all these blogs, I think just because it was so different than everything else. And we went up to San Francisco and shot a cool music video for it. It ended up getting a lot of love and went straight to #1 on Hype Machine, my first song ever. And then my second song, and then my third song. They all went to #1. And so right from the beginning of my career, I had success, but those streams were going to like SoundCloud and stuff. This was like, these songs weren't even on because they had samples and stuff, so we couldn't clear them. So those songs weren't even on DSPs, they were on SoundCloud. And within like the first few weeks of my career, I was in Atlantic. The A&R was about this far away from me, and he was like, he had just signed Young Thug, the rapper, and he was like, stand up. And I was like, okay. And he's like, rap for me. And I'm like this like 19-year-old kid, and I was like, what do you mean, like stand up and rap for you? I'm not like a rapper. Like, I'm not gonna like act like Young Thug for you if that's what you want. Like, it's just, I don't know, going back to the major label stuff. So from there, we were like taking meetings and just we're like, no, we're gonna do this on our own for now. None of this seems right. Like, nobody, they're all gonna try to transform me into something that I don't want to be. So carried on there independently and just made a couple EPs just in-house with my boys, just my boys that I grew up with back home. And, you know, I was so hungry at the time, and that plays into so much of my success because I was going through so much, you know, just mentally with family stuff and just random shit going on in life. And I wrote about it all. And that's how I started writing, was just writing about what's going on in my life. And it translated with people. It translated so much, and I think it cut through any of the bullshit, just because the stories that I were telling were very, very deep and very real. And it translated with people, and, you know, I'll still get messages today about those albums way back then saying, like, these saved my life. Like, what you were talking about on those albums, like, saved my life. They're like, please make more stuff like this. I'm like, well, I'm not going through all that, you know. I'm trying to make stuff about what I'm going through now, which is still deep, and I always will carry myself that way and record songs about what I'm going through in my life. But it's hard to replicate the struggles that I was going through back then. But that really resonated with people and took me to a super successful place as an independent artist.
Yeah, when you look up Jez Dior now on Spotify,
yeah,
I mean, I don't know how many millions of views you have. Streams you have. Do you have any idea what that number is?
It's hundreds of millions.
Yeah,
yeah.
So I mean, you've found success, probably more success. Is that a correct statement? Independently.
Yeah, I think like if you take the few singles and then the album that I did with Epic, I think if you accumulate those, they probably reach about 100 million or so. I think independently, there's more than a couple hundred.
Right.
So,
and that's the reason I wanted to have you on this show is, pardon me, because so many people think that they need a major label.
yeah.
And, you know, today with the internet, well, no, you don't.
Yeah.
But one thing that I know about you is you're a marketing machine.
Yeah.
You see Jez Dior all over TikTok.
I mean, I'm trying to be
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
And that's what it takes.
Yeah.
You cut some of your songs here at Arch Audio for
Yeah.
your last album.
Yeah.
And I get on TikTok today and I see you singing to that song,
Yeah.
somewhere. And then the next day it's the same song but a different place. It's like you're shooting a new video every day.
No, literally. I mean, you have to. It's what it is now, and for better or for worse, it's just the name of the game, and it's been ever changing since I started, and you just have to follow along with it. But it really is a thing where, like, with the attention span of these kids these days, is like, you put out something today, they're gonna watch it and like it, and they're gonna forget about it tomorrow.
Right.
So you have to keep your face out there for everybody every single day if you can. It's hard to post every single day, but you got to do it at least multiple times a week. And going back to your point is like having more success as an independent artist than on a major. It's like, I always say, it was my biggest dream in life growing up. I looked up to 50 Cent and Eminem and all these big artists when I was a kid. And, so I would like read the booklets, the CDs, and like see, oh, they're signed to Interscope. That'd be cool to sign there one day. That'd be a dream for me, or like Def Jam or whatever. And so that was my dream, was to sign to a major. And then I always say my dream became a nightmare. And, if I know it's still a dream for a lot of people, but if you have the information and you have people who have done it before and been there and had more success independently, and that information is out there that you can do it on your own. And there's so many resources now with TikTok, and you really just need an iPhone. Like, people don't understand that, is that like people are going viral overnight with just shooting, recording a song in their bedroom and shooting a video on their iPhone. That's all you really need.
Right.
You need to record a good song and shoot a video on your iPhone and be clever. And that's the name of the game right now.
Yeah, that's what I feel like you're really good at.
Yeah.
Is, and you got a cool look,
Thank you.
but the way that you put yourself in front of that camera every day and the way that you marry it with your music,
Yeah.
Is interesting. So it
took
keeps the eyeballs.
It took a lot for me to get to the point where I was comfortable doing that, because I came from an era where I just had to make cool music. And one of my favorite parts of making art and making music was making cool music videos. And so it was really a struggle for me to like set that aside, because people aren't really watching music videos as much unless you're a crazy big artist like Bad Bunny or Drake or Gaga or whatever, and to just like set up my iPhone in my bedroom. And I'm like, okay, it took a lot out of me to do that, but it's what you have to do. It's what you have to do. And, I'm willing to do whatever I have to do to succeed and to keep going and to keep my career going as long as it's been going, and continue that further.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I've noticed with artists, from managing artists in the past, is you got to want it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've managed people where I wanted it more for them than they did, I felt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's one of the pieces of advice that, I would give to somebody wanting to, quote, make it.
Yeah.
Is you've got to promote yourself. You can't think that somebody's going to do it for you.
Yeah, and I've had plenty of times in my life where I've felt defeated, and my manager probably thought the same thing, that he wanted it more than I did. Because like, this is tough. Like, I'm telling my real life stories.
Right.
And when you don't get the streams you want, or you don't get the playlists you want, or just things aren't going your way at a certain time, it is defeating, because, like, especially on this album that I recorded here that's coming out, like, I put my heart and soul into that, and especially into the lyrics and the stories that I'm telling, and
Right.
like, as this comes out, I want it to do well. I want people to love it and resonate with it. So it's like, it's my life's work. So of course, now that like I'm independent and doing it, by myself again, basically, other than the help of Chris Wallace and the distro team that I have, I feel more inspired again. And so, you got to make sure that whatever you're doing it in a way that's going to inspire you, because there's a lot of setbacks that can happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So, in addition to putting yourself out there on the internet and trying to keep content going, I mean, what are some other pieces of advice that you would have to hopeful artists? What should they do on a daily basis?
I mean, put in your 10,000 hours. Some people get lucky and they'll write a song and it'll go viral, but like a lot of the times you won't hear from them again, So I think a lot of the artists that stick around have put in the work. Like, just because you have one thing that goes doesn't mean you're going to be here for forever.
Right.
So put in the work, put in your 10,000 hours. I dropped out of high school and my mom basically said, if you're not going to go to school, you record a song every single night. Because I was up all night anyways. Like, I'm a night owl. And she's like, record a song every single night. Don't go to bed until you do it. And I did that.
Wow.
Every night as a kid. Like, I was recording myself on GarageBand, like just rapping, like every single night. So put in the 10,000 hours and don't stop short of that.
Right.
Hone in on your craft, and because the market is so saturated that there's only a few that are going to cut through, and that's just the way that it is.
So how many songs do they say are released to Apple Music and Spotify every day?
I don't know, 15 billion. It's like it's something insane. Like,
it's some stupid number.
Gazillion. Yeah.
And you feel like you're just a speck of sand in the ocean.
Yeah, and it's like, you're fighting for these playlist spots with people who, labels own most of those spots. So every label owns a couple spots on each playlist. I don't know if most people know that, but they do. And so if you're on a label, if you're on a distro, they're going to pitch you, whether it's priority or not, they're going to pitch you. But knowing that no matter how good your song is, you're fighting against a lot of people to get a spot on that playlist, and you only have a certain amount of spots.
Right. So it's
to get
largely about numbers too. If you put one song out, you got little chance. But if you put a song out every day, like you were talking about, that's not reasonable. But the more songs you put out, the more opportunities.
One will go.
Yeah.
One will go.
Yeah.
So that's the thing is, like, if you're talented and you work at your craft every day and you're making music and you're consistently putting it out and you're promoting yourself on TikTok and you're getting eyeballs on you, like, you could start from zero tomorrow and work your ass off and make something of yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
When's the last time you did a photo shoot?
I did a video shoot like 2 weeks ago with this really dope dude who, I forget where he lives in, like Florida, I think, but he comes down to Nashville every couple weeks. So I did that with him, and he also does photo stuff too. So we did some stuff, but
I've noticed some of your stuff. You got some cool photos out there on the interweb.
Yeah, I really, with the photo stuff, like when I do an actual photo shoot and not just like posting slides from my iPhone, I've always tried to do some cool artsy stuff with that. That's the thing is like there's so much taken out of the art in today's world with TikTok and all this stuff, which is great. And it's a great platform, and I love that it puts eyeballs on us, but it does take away from the art. So when I can, I like to mess around and get a little weird with things.
Yeah. Well, you've got a good eye.
Yeah.
Your artsy eye is good because every photo I've seen out there of you is artsy. It's not just you standing in a field.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes you want to find out a little bit about Jez Dior.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the reason I'm asking you about this and bringing it up is because that's another way of just being inspirational to other people.
Yeah.
Is putting yourself out there, in photo shoots and just releasing internet or interesting visual content.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely something that cuts through, like, I don't know if you're familiar with an artist named Tizo Touchdown that has been out for the last couple of years, but like when he first came out, he had nails all over his head and like in his hair and stuff like that. And obviously you're like, who is this guy?
Right.
You know, so
Yeah.
it does take a little bit of that too. You know, it's all encompassing. So you gotta have a certain look to you, whether you're a dork and you're rapping good, whether you're super cool, whether you got nails in your head.
Yeah.
You know, it's the whole thing. It's the whole package that you got to put together.
Well, you look at Madonna and Lady Gaga, right?
Yeah.
Both of those ladies were, well, Lady Gaga still, well, both of them still really are, but Lady Gaga certainly they're both different than the average artist.
Yeah.
And you kind of wonder if they would have been as popular without the gimmick.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, both mega talented, but also like that draws you in.
Right.
That, you know, wearing a meat suit at the Grammys or whatever Lady Gaga did, like, yeah, of course you're going to pay attention to that, you know?
Yeah.
So like there is that side, like aesthetically you have to make things look right as well.
Right. Right.
But that could be any sort of way.
Absolutely.
You know,
yeah.
that doesn't have to be like, you don't have to be outlandish or whatever. It just, it's important side to think about.
Every person's different. Every
Yeah.
person has a different personality. So whatever
Yeah.
fits within the personality and the inspiration.
Yeah. And you have
Of the art.
you know, you have to find your fan base too. That's important.
That's right.
You know, I think a lot of people focus on views, and it's not really about views. It's about finding people that are viewing your stuff that are going to view the next one and then the next one and
Right.
stick around and make them your fan for life.
Right.
That's really what it's about. You know, you could get 1 million views on something and none of them are going to watch your next video. They just like that viral video.
That's right.
You know, so it's
Yeah.
about converting those views into real fans.
Absolutely. Well, we're limited on time. I'd sit here and talk to you all day.
I know, me too.
But I want to talk about this cool can that we've got sitting here on the table.
What's this cool can?
Yeah, it's electric.
It's electric.
So tell us about this thing.
So electric is my energy drink that I am co-owner of. This is Orange Dreamsicle. Welcome, Cherry Limeade. I got brought into this company sort of just like, I don't know, like some divine intervention stuff. So they reached out to me just on some partnership stuff. Just thought I'd be a good fit for the brand. And we got to talking more and more. And I was like, I really like the product and I like what you guys stand for. And, you know, it's 0 calories, it's low sodium. It's got none of the additives that all the other energy drink companies have. And I was just like, this is something that I feel like I could get behind and be a part of. And they were like, wow, you really like seem super interested in this. And they were like, why don't we fly you down to Portland? And I was like, really? Like for just to meet or for what? Like I wasn't really sure. And I got down there and the whole team was just super cool and took me kind of into like a boardroom meeting that I wasn't really expecting or ready for. But we had talked a little bit about like maybe you could come in and get some equity in the brand and like travel with us and promote it and grow with us. And I was thinking, okay, that sounds great, but how realistic is that? And then I went and had the meeting and there was like, you know, the financial people there too. So I was a little nervous because you know, look at me. And then also like I'm talking about this stuff, but they ended up loving me and they were like somehow, some way we're like, oh, he speaks so eloquently and like he carries himself so well. We'd love to have him a part of the team. And I'm like, that's what they said about me. And it just ended up happening. And I couldn't be more happy with the brand, with supporting it, getting behind it. And I think that it's like a healthy alternative to the rest of the energy drinks. And you know, it's lower, it's lower in caffeine than a lot of them. It's only 160 milligrams. You don't get the weird crash or shakes or anything. And it tastes incredible. It tastes way better than Monster, Red Bull, Celsius, all you guys. It tastes way better.
Well, I got to agree with you there.
Right? I mean,
You, Jez brought a case over today to the studio, and I popped the orange dreamsicle.
orange dreamsicle.
Yeah. And man, it tastes like an orange dreamsicle.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah, I know.
It's more like flavored tea than
just
an
like-
energy drink. You know, you don't have that.
When I first tried it,
Taste.
I was like, you know, because I play soccer all the time, so I drink energy drinks before. But when I first tried it, I was like shocked. I was like, this is so good. I want more. And I was like, but I can't be drinking energy drinks all day long. But like, it really does taste great.
Yeah, it doesn't taste like, you know, a Red Bull or Monster, which
Yeah.
are the two that I've, you know, always go to. And it's so smooth. You know, now I'm drinking the cherry.
That's what Tyson was saying. He was like, I feel like I could drink this before I sing and not like the other ones. He's like, I don't know, it would mess with my throat or whatever. He's like, I could definitely drink this before I sing, you know?
It is.
That's what we're trying to cater to is like musicians, extreme sports, regular sports, like, you know, stuff like that. So I'm excited about it. I think it has a big future. We got some big moves coming up and yeah, electric. It's going to be a thing.
So you never know how being an artist is going to take you into something new.
This all came from my artist stuff. So
Yeah.
they, Chris, who I work with, not Chris Wallace, but Chris Johnson, who I work with on electric. I didn't even remember this, but I guess like 11 years ago, we had a conversation about him potentially managing me when it first came out, but I didn't even remember that. So when he hit me up about this, I didn't remember knowing him at all.
Yeah.
But this came because he's been a fan of my music since then and a supporter of me for a long time. So he already knew what I was about and you know, sort of can relate to the struggles that I've been through and this and that and overcoming things, and just thought that I'd be a great candidate to come into the company. And that all came from my artist stuff. So you really never know. Yeah.
Well, you know, you're good as an artist. You have a fan base. But the thing that I heard you say a minute ago is they picked up on your professionalism, how well you speak, you know, and those types of things. And that's important for an artist, you know, the way they talk, the way they walk, the way they...
Yeah,
You know,
the way you carry yourself.
Absolutely. You never know where it's going to lead you. You never know who's going to be impressed by that.
Yeah, and I think that that's a lot of thing. There's a lot of people who won't respond to random DMs or stuff like that. But you know, if you carry yourself with respect and somebody's reaching out to you, whether it's because your song saved their life or it's because they have this outlandish idea about you being a part of their company that you don't think that could actually happen.
It's crazy.
What happens if you respond? It happens.
Right.
You know, so don't take any offer or any message or anything for granted because you don't know what can come from it.
It's just like taking the chance earlier in your life. You just,
Yeah.
you know, you answered. I call it, in my world, chasing the rabbit.
Yeah.
When opportunities come my way, I'll chase the rabbit far enough to see if it goes anywhere.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, no harm, no foul.
Exactly.
And if it does, well, you got a decision
Yeah.
to make.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I'm glad for you. I'm truly impressed by this drink. I got to tell you.
That makes me so happy.
Yeah, it's and you know, we were, as you know, in the studio today recording with you and
Yeah.
Tyson Lehman, and everybody here in the studio that tried it was floored.
I mean, they seem like genuine reactions, so it made me very happy.
Yeah,
and everybody likes the can too, so that's a big part of it.
I was going to say that I was around a group of people earlier today.
Yeah.
And within an hour, 4 people asked me what I was drinking because of the graphics on the can.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And so that's pretty cool.
That's telling. That's telling.
Yeah.
So I think there's a bright future.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your history with us, your knowledge. I hope to have you back.
I mean, you know, I'll be back. I appreciate everything that you've done for me over the last year and sharing your space with me and letting us come here and record in the best studio in Tennessee.
I appreciate that.
In the country.
Now you're talking.
You know, yeah. No, this space feels like my home for recording, and I'm happy to come down here anytime, and feel so blessed and thankful that you have us down here. And yeah.
Well, we're going to have you back. And for those of you who are listening online or watching online, thank you for taking a few minutes to hear Jez's story. And I hope you've learned a little bit. Here at Arch Audio, this podcast is about anything to do with music. So I hope you'll join in next time. Until then, we're out.